A musical instrument by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, 1806 to 1861. What was he doing, the great god Pan, down in the reeds by the river, spreading ruin and scattering ban, splashing and paddling with hooves of a goat, and breaking the golden lilies afloat with the dragonfly on the river? He tore out a reed, the great god Pan, from the deep cool bed of the river. The limpid water turbidly ran, and the broken lilies a dying lay, and the dragonfly had fled away ere he brought it out of the river. High on the shore sate the great god Pan, while turbidly flowed the river, and hacked and hewed as a great god can, with his hard bleak steel at the patient reed, till there was not a sign of a leaf indeed to prove it fresh from the river. He cut it short, did the great god Pan, how tall it stood in the river, then drew the pith like the heart of a man steadily from the outside ring, and notched the poor dry empty thing in holes as he sate by the river. This is the way, laughed the great god Pan, laughed while he sate by the river, the only way since gods began to make sweet music they could succeed. Then dropping his mouth to a hole in the reed, he blew in power by the river. Sweet, 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 O Pan, piercing sweet by the river, blinding sweet, O great god Pan, the sun on the hills forgot to die, and the lilies revived, and the dragonfly came back to dream on the river. Yet half a beast is the great god Pan, to laugh as he sits by the river, making a poet out of a man. The true gods sigh for the cost and pain, for the reed which grows never more again as a reed with the reeds in the river. Okay, this is a poem by Elizabeth Browning. Let's see, this Elizabeth Browning came from England. She came from the northeast of England, from County Durham. She was the oldest of 12 children. She came from a family that had that was wealthy, and they had sugar estates in Jamaica and other interests in the United States. Some of her family had lived in Jamaica since the mid-17th century, and they were rich from this. They owned a huge number of slaves. Let's see, she got into she received a letter from Robert Browning, who was a fan, and eventually they eloped together and went and got married and lived in Italy because her father refused to give them permission to marry. So anyway, let's look at this poem, A Musical Instrument. Now, this musical instrument, we need to know the mythology that goes from this. This comes from classical Greek mythology and Syrinx. Okay, Syrinx was a nymph, and Syris was known for her chastity. She was determined to be a virgin forever, for all time. Anyway, she was pursued by Pan, the god Pan. He's got the feet of the goat and the horns, and Pan, he was going to rape her. and she escaped from him, and finally was turned into a reed in the river. Okay, she asked the river nymphs to help her, and she would then ask to be turned into a reed, and Pan followed her here, but he couldn't find her, and finally he cut some reeds to make pan pipes, to make a flute. Now Pan traditionally has a flute which has 7 different tones, and you blow across the top, and they make different sounds. And the reed that was syrinx, he cut the reed, he pulled the reed out, and he made the first pan pipe out of that reed. And like that, syrinx was converted effectively into the spirit of the pan pipe. So, what was he doing, the great god Pan, down in the reeds by the river? Well, the great god Pan was down in the river looking for Syrinx, because he wanted to have his wicked way with her, and she didn't want that at all. And he was going to rape her, and he was there looking for her because he knew she had gone there, but she had been turned into one of these reeds, but he didn't know that. Spreading ruin and scattering ban, splashing and paddling with hooves of a goat, and breaking the golden lilies afloat with a dragonfly on the river. So he's scattering, he's breaking all of the lilies, he's splashing with his hoofs of a goat, and he's scattering ban, swear words. Is this woman, and he was destroying the reeds, and he was breaking the golden water lilies, and he was frightening the dragonfly. So he was making a real mess of the river, which I'm sure was very beautiful. He tore out a reed, the great god Pan, from the deep cool bed of the river. So he pulled out a reed, and this is the reed that represents Syrinx, from the deep cool riverbed. So he pulls it out of the riverbed. The limpid water turbidly ran. Now I love this line, because limpid is clear, translucent water, and it's turbid with the mud and the things that Pan has brought up by running around in the river and by pulling up the reed. So the limpid, it gives the purity, the innocence of Syrinx, the wood nymph, and then turbid, this turbid water, is the attitude or the actions of Pan, who is after her. Anyway, he's pulled out this reed, and the broken lilies a dying lay, and the dragonfly had fled away ere he brought it out of the river. So the lilies, all the water lilies, were all broken, and the dragonfly had gone away when he took this reed out of the river. Notice as well, look at this, Pan ran away, lay. It rhymes very nicely. It's got this rhythm which gives this feeling of the water continually flowing, continually flowing, continually flowing. High on the shore sate the great god Pan, while turbidly flowed the river. And here she's got into this repetition again, and this repetition is also showing the flowing of the river. So Pan sat on the bank of the river, while the dirtiness, while the mud that he had churned up flowed in the river, and hacked and hewed as a great god can, with his hard bleak steel at the patient reed. till there was not a sign of a leaf indeed to prove it fresh from the river. So he hacked and hewed, he cut the reed with his hard bleak steel, with his knife. Yeah, and he's cutting. But notice, to hack and to hew are to cut badly, to cut roughly, not to cut gently and carve beautifully. He's just hacking. Yeah, so this is talking about the idea that Pan is a beast. He's got no great skill, no great art, no great agility, and he's hacking the reed with his knife. I also have over to me this phrase, he hacked and hewed with his hard bleak steel. This to me it's almost an overtone of the rape that Pan would like to inflict on Syrinx. But as she is now a reed, he's hacking her with his knife instead, and he cuts at the reed until there's no leaves left on. He's taken all the leaves off it, and there's nothing that of the pure, beautiful, clean nymph, or the pure, beautiful reed that existed before. He cut it short, did the great god Pan, how tall it stood in the river. So he actually cut it into 7 pieces in the original story. So he cut it into pieces, but in the river the reed was tall and strong and beautiful. And this is the destruction of beauty. This is the destruction of femininity. Then drew the pith like the heart of a man. So he pulled the pith, the white centre, out of it. And here the pith I think is the white centre, the white inside. And here again, the whiteness of the pith is representing purity. Steadily from the outside ring. So yeah, he's pulling the pith out of it, and notched the poor dry empty thing in holes as he sate by the river. So here in this version, he's cutting holes in this reed to make a flute like this, a pipe like this. Normally the pan pipe is one with very different ones, and you blow over the top of them. But well, it's also the way another way to make pan pipes. And he cut notches, holes in the poor dry empty thing, in holes as he sat by the river. So it's as if he has ripped everything out of Syrinx. He has destroyed all of the beauty of Syrinx, and now Syrinx is just a poor, dry, empty thing. It's not the beautiful wood nymph that had existed before. This is the way, laughed the great god Pan, laughed while he sate by the river. So now Pan is laughing. This is the way, the only way since gods began, to make sweet music, they could succeed. Then dropping his mouth to a hole in the reed, he blew in power by the river. So here Pan is laughing. He's laughing as he sat by the river, and he's saying this is the way to make music. And he blows on the pan pipes, and he makes music, and he has converted her into his music. In a way, it's like he has dominated her. Yeah, he hasn't been able to rape her, but he's still certainly been able to control her and modify her and mould her to his will. And now he's making music. Sweet, 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 O Pan, piercing sweet by the river, binding sweet, O great god Pan. The sun on the hill forgot to die, and the lilies revived, and the dragonfly came back to dream on the river. And suddenly we have this beautiful music that is going everywhere. So now Syrinx is making beautiful music, and perhaps she has got back some of her femininity. And the sun forgot to go down because the sun is listening to the music, and the dead water lilies that had been pulled out, they started to get better, and the dragonfly came back, and all was peaceful and beautiful on the river again. And now we have the last verse, and this is where Browning is criticizing Pan. Yet half a beast is the great god Pan. So yes, Pan can make music, and yes, he's a god, but he's also a beast. He's an animal for what he's done. To laugh as he sits by the river, to laugh at what he has done to Syrinx, to laugh at what he's done to the reed. Yes, he couldn't rape her, but he has brutalized and dominated her. To sit as by the river, making a poet out of a man. So here he's made a musical instrument out of Syrinx. And this is talking about perhaps the poetry that man produces. True gods sigh for the cost and pain, for the reed which grows never more again, as a reed with the reeds in the river. And the true gods, the real gods, gods who have a heart, gods who have feeling, gods, not the cruel gods of old, but true gods, people who are real gods. They sigh in pain, at the cost of what's happened. They sigh for the reeds which never more grows again. So they are sighing for the pain of the reed, or the pain of Syrinx, who is no longer a nymph, who has been pulled out as a reed, who is no longer a reed, and is now the instrument of Pan. And this itself is, I think, a metaphor for the way that women are dominated and used by a male society. And it's saying that Syrinx was transformed into a reed. She was then transformed into a musical instrument, and this Syrinx is still effectively a slave of Pan, and that's the idea. So, The Musical Instrument by Elizabeth Barrett Browning.